Since they made a new Nancy Drew game this year, I decided to write another one of my silly Nancy Drew parody stories. This is Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys, Chapter 1. Adela's letter said to meet her at the Hunger Kunger Bunger Cafe, but it didn't say when to meet her, Nancy said to herself. I hope I haven't kept her waiting for very long. Nancy reread Adela's letter as she walked across a courtyard. Dear Miss Drew, the jewels in my necklace have been replaced with fakes. It was my mother's necklace, which she got in the year 1974. I was never very close to my mother, because she refused to let me play video games for 5 hours a day when I was in 2nd grade. Totally unfair, right? You will meet with me at the Hungerkünstler Cafe, which is in the castle courtyard. I won't give you directions to it. Na-na-na-na boo-boo on you. Nancy had to stop reading for a few seconds when she walked directly into a pole. Ow! She cried. Please, no questions until you arrive. Don't bother me with unimportant things like, I have no idea who you are, and where am I going to sleep? Only call me in case of an emergency. A. Cherna. P.S. This case is highly confidential. That means do not tell anyone about it. Especially not your friends and relatives. P.P.S. You can tell the Hardy Boys, though. They're cool. Nancy used her amazing detective skills, and the map feature on her phone, to locate the cafe. As she entered, an older woman sitting at a table waved at her. Nancy quickly ran over and slapped the woman's hand with all her might. High five! Nancy cried. Ow! The woman said. What'd you do that for? I thought you wanted me to... Never mind, Nancy said. Are you Adela Cherna? Yes, and you must be Nancy Drew, the woman said. International detective, and don't believe the haters, because I totally didn't let an alligator eat the priceless crystal skull, Nancy said. It fell into Bernie's mouth by accident. The woman looked confused for a second before she continued talking. I have researched your cases. You have quite an impressive history. Tell me, when were you most scared? Was it in the haunted ryokan in Japan? Or in that abandoned mansion in your southern states? Actually, my scariest case was Nancy Drew in the expired can of mayonnaise, Nancy said. I wasn't sure whether or not to put it on my peanut butter and jellyfish sandwich. I decided to feed it to... The conversation was interrupted by a young blonde woman. Excuse me, are you Nancy Drew? She asked. I am, Nancy said. Pleased to meet you, the woman said. I am Adela Cherna. The sitting woman looked offended. No, I am Adela Cherna. The standing woman slammed her hand on the table. This is fraud. Prove you are me. I owe you nothing. Imposter, the sitting woman said. A confused Nancy looked between the two women. One was wearing a well-used apron with coffee stains, while the other wore a coat which cost more than a flight to Europe. How could Nancy possibly be expected to know which one was a coffee shop employee and which was her wealthy client? The mystery had only just begun, and it was already looking like Nancy's toughest mystery yet. I notice I do a lot better with the accents when I'm quoting the actual game line by line, and not so much when the characters are saying things they didn't say in the game. Chapter 2. Nancy couldn't afford to look bad, even if she was confused. I'll solve this mystery, she declared boldly. I will determine which of you is the real Adela Cherna, but I get to ask one question first. Okay, said the standing woman. Agreed, said the sitting woman. Nancy closed her eyes, thinking heavily. What question could she ask to identify Adela? I've got it, Nancy said. Which one of you is Adela? Me, said the sitting woman. I am, said the standing woman, at the same time. Crap, Nancy said. That was just a practice question. It doesn't count. The real question is, which 1974, which year did your mother get the necklace? 1974, both women said. Oh, geez, Nancy said. Fine, what's your favorite type of coffee? And please don't say the exact same thing this time, because that's not fair. I take my coffee black and bitter, the same as my soul, the standing woman said. To make my favorite coffee, take the Americano, only replace the espresso with double the coffee found in the doppio, and add the amount of cinnamon you'd have when subtracting the cafe latte from the flat white, said the sitting woman. Nancy pointed her finger at the sitting woman. Your answer was more confusing, so you must be the culprit, she said. Nancy was correct. The sitting woman was Patricia Witkowski, the owner of the cafe. I apologize for the deception, Adela said. That was the only way to make sure you were a capable detective. The only way? Nancy asked. My resume is 40 pages long. You could have checked that. Well, it is getting late, Adela said. I shall meet with you tomorrow morning. As we say in Prague. Whoa! Nancy said. As we say in America, hold up there, cowboy! You brought me all the way here for a test, and you're not going to tell me about the mystery until tomorrow? That's super rude. Tell me about the mystery now. It kind of bothers me in the game that Adela, gives Nancy the test and just leaves for the night. She really should have told Nancy about the mystery right away. That's why Nancy complains about it in this story. Adela was surprised, but she agreed. Long story short. Adela was surprised, but she agreed. Long story short, I tried to sell my mother's necklace through a friend, Vladena Zlati, Adela said. When she couldn't find a buyer quickly enough, I decided to sell the necklace through a website called Second Shine. Both of them had the necklace for about a week. When I got the necklace back, Vladena said the jewels were replaced with fakes. So, your two suspects are Vladena Zlati and Second Shine, Nancy said, summarizing Adela's story. There is also Oscar Dvorak, Adela said. He is the third person on my suspect list. What's Oscar Dvorak like? Nancy asked. I do not know, Adela said. I have never met the man. Oh, Nancy said. Then how was he able to examine your necklace? He did not, Adela said. Vladena examined the necklace, as I explained earlier. Okay then. How is he related to this crime again? This is not the first time Prague's gems have been stolen, Adela said. 20 years ago, someone stole jewels from the Prachka Historica Museum. Oscar was the assistant curator at the time. Let me see if I understand, Nancy said. Oscar is a person you've never met, who never had access to your necklace, and whose only connection to a jewel theft is when he was victimized before I was even born. Exactly, Adela said. He sounds guilty, Nancy said. I am definitely putting him at the top of my suspect list. Chapter 3. Nancy officially began her investigation the next morning. She had a crime to investigate and 3 suspects to question. She was definitely going to stay focused on the mystery. She would not do something silly, like spend the entire day playing with puppets. Nancy strolled into the cafe, feeling the thrill that always accompanied the start of a new case. Only one thing could make it better. Coffee! Hey, can I get some coffee? Nancy asked Patricia. I've got a long day of mystery solving ahead of me. Ah, Detective Drew, your timing is very good, Patricia said. I need your help to fix the coffee machine. How should I know how to fix a coffee machine? Nancy asked. I'm a world-famous detective, not a machine repair person. You do not need to know how to fix the machine, Patricia said. You merely need to find the missing portafilter and matching handle. I have no idea what those things are, Nancy complained. Oh, and you must find my missing recipe book as well, Patricia said. I'm sure they have not gone far. They are all still somewhere in the cafe. Nancy sighed. She was really hoping to get coffee without playing a game of hide-and-seek first. Fine, but do me a favor next time, Nancy said. In the future, don't call me a detective when other people are nearby. I want to keep it a secret. Ah, yes, you must be a mystery in order to solve a mystery, Patricia said. Nancy began searching the cafe, casting sly glances at every counter and table. When that didn't work, she tried throwing the books and tables across the room, but Patricia told her to stop. Nancy decided to ask someone else for help. "Excuse me," she said to an older gentleman with a priest's collar. "I'm a famous American detective, here to find a stolen necklace. Do you know where the coffee filter is?" The man looked startled. "There are thieves in Prague?" he asked. "We don't know for sure if the coffee filter is stolen," Nancy said. "It's probably just misplaced." "I believe I saw it on the counter near the cinnamon sticks," the man said. "But what's this about a stolen necklace?" "Someone stole extremely valuable gems from a necklace," Nancy said. "It's a good thing I don't have any precious jewels to protect. Otherwise, I'd be extremely worried." "Excuse me," the priest said, getting up and quickly leaving the cafe. Nancy bent down and picked up a playing card on the ground, under the man's table. "Hey, you forgot your card!" Nancy said, but it was too late. The man was gone. Nancy shrugged. Whoever that guy was, he was probably unimportant, a total stranger that she would never meet again. Obviously, the priest guy is Father Leo. I decided to speed up the story a bit by having Nancy briefly meet him here at the start. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6½ Keys, Chapter 4. 10 minutes later, Nancy finally finished finding Patricia's 3 missing items. It had taken Nancy way too long to realize the recipe book was on the low wall near the mystery section of the library. Why wasn't it in the cooking section? "I got your stuff," Nancy said. "Can I have my coffee now?" "No, first you must learn how to brew the perfect cup of coffee," Patricia said. "You want to learn about the local culture here in Prague, no? This will help you." "Unless someone stole Adela's necklace in order to buy coffee, I'm pretty sure this won't help," Nancy muttered. She took several steps backwards, then did a running jump over the counter. Nancy thought it was pretty impressive looking, even if she broke 3 coffee mugs in the process. Patricia showed Nancy to the espresso machine. "You take the customer's order here," she said. "I want a sweet sunrise," the customer said. "That has twice the espresso as the Cafe Americano, plus the amount of milk in the Cafe con leche, divided by the scoops of vanilla in an hour late," Patricia said. "I do not understand a single thing you just said," Nancy said. "It's simple. Put the cup in the coffee maker and press the button with 2 beans," Patricia said. "That's because this order has 2 shots of espresso. Understand?" "I guess," Nancy said. She put down the cup under the middle faucet and pressed the button. "No, that's the water faucet!" Patricia cried. Espresso started pouring out of the right faucet, nowhere near the cup. "A water faucet? Shouldn't that be in the sink?" Nancy asked. "Don't tell me the coffee in this cafe is watered down." "The machine dispenses hot water in addition to coffee," Patricia explained. "Then what's this button do?" Nancy asked. Suddenly the metallic rod started shooting out hot milk. "That's the milk dispenser," Patricia said. "You're getting it all over the floor." "This thing makes water, milk, and beans?" Nancy asked. "Yeesh, sounds like it makes everything besides coffee." "Espresso is coffee," Patricia said. "No way. I thought it was just a type of coffee," Nancy said. Is this a bad time?" the customer asked. "Don't worry, I'll get your coffee done as soon as I figure out this screwy machine," Nancy promised. "Hey, you wouldn't happen to want a cup of milk instead of coffee, would you?" "Allow me," Patricia said, stepping in with a fresh cup. She quickly put in 2 shots of espresso, vanilla, and sugar. "You," she said, pointing at Nancy, "since you're so good with hot milk, you get to make latte art." "But the guy didn't order a latte," Nancy said. "It's simple," Patricia said. "See the fun designs here? You need to pour the milk on top of the coffee to make those designs." "I totally got this," Nancy said. She picked a cute little cat and started pouring. "You went outside the line," Patricia said immediately. "Crap," Nancy said. She scooped out half the coffee, then tried again. "The whiskers are too tiny," Patricia said. Try again, Nancy said. She scooped out half the coffee, then tried pouring as slowly as possible. Could you please hurry it up? The customer asked. Dang it, you made me mess up, Nancy said as she accidentally dumped a huge blob onto the cat's eye. She scooped out half the coffee, then tried again. That's the third time you've thrown out the coffee, the customer complained. My drink now has more milk than coffee. Stop trying to ruin my artistic vision, Nancy cried. She made a frowny face with the creamy milk. See, that's what you look like. The man left without paying for his coffee. Wow, that guy was a jerk, Nancy said. Next! That's okay, Patricia said. I think you've made enough coffee today. But I only made the one coffee, Nancy said. And it was wonderful, Patricia said. As a reward for your excellent coffee-making skills, here is a snow globe. A snow globe? I wanted coffee, Nancy complained. Then she shrugged. She could always give the snow globe to Ned and pretend she bought it for him on purpose. It did look kind of expensive. This is a totally normal snow globe, right? Nancy asked. As far as I know, Patricia said. Good, because how weird would it be if the snow globe ended up being a secret key that unlocks a hidden underground laboratory or something? Nancy asked. You have a very active imagination, Patricia said. It's what makes me a great detective, Nancy said proudly. Chapter 5. Nancy only spilled a little bit of coffee on her shirt as she took a big gulp of her Americano with 3 cinnamon sticks and 10 sugars. Okay, now I'm ready to start investigating, she said. I'm going to start with eeny, meeny, miny, Oscar. Fortunately, Adela had texted Nancy that morning with everyone's contact information. Nancy called Oscar. Oscar Dvorak, who's calling? This is an American number. Yes, but I'm in Prague, Nancy said. I'm Nancy Drew, world-famous detective and classy dresser. I'm investigating the theft of Adela Cherna's necklace. I know Adela, Oscar said. How could I help? I understand that the museum was robbed in the past, Nancy said. Maybe the jewel thieves have returned to plague the town once more. That happens all the time in monster movie sequels. That was 20 years ago, Oscar said. I know a lot of video games that came out 20 years ago, which I would love to see remastered, Nancy said. And guess what? One of those games is about stealing jewels from a royal tower. That means it's possible that whoever robbed your museum is after the upcoming crown jewel exhibit. Tell you what, Oscar said. I will open up the museum. I will show you around. You will be convinced that everything is safe. You mean the jewels are in a safe? Nancy asked. We don't have security guards, Oscar said. And please, enter through the main entrance. Nobody watches the back entrance. Nancy nodded, then realized Oscar couldn't see her. I just nodded, she said, and then she hung up. She finished her coffee, then stomped across the courtyard to the museum. She noticed an eye-catching signboard right next to the museum's entrance. Hey, Oscar, she said. What's up with the haunted tour sign? That is one of our most popular attractions, Oscar said. We turn on a fog machine and let guests wander the museum. Who runs it? Nancy asked. No one, Oscar said. No one? Nancy asked. It's a fully automated tour, Oscar said. So you're telling me that every single night you open the doors to the museum so anyone could waltz in and steal whatever they want without being caught? As I explained, we have some very nice velvet ropes, Oscar said. Although we put them away during the haunted tour so guests don't accidentally trip over them. It can be hard to see them in the fog. Nancy thought about it for a few minutes. Fog is hard to see through, she agreed. I can see this museum has the best security ever. Chapter 6. Speaking of museum security, how well do the cameras work? Nancy asked, pointing to a security camera in the corner on the ceiling. It's hard to notice, but it is there in the game. They must be able to zoom in a long way, right? No, actually, those cameras are fake, Oscar said. They don't record anything. If they were good enough to fool me, they must be good enough to fool any potential thieves, Nancy laughed. If they were good enough to fool me, they must be good enough to fool any potential thieves, Nancy laughed. She picked up a cylindrical object lying on a table. What's this weird thing? Some kind of soda container? That is a priceless artifact, which is over 1,000 years old, Oscar corrected her. And you leave it out in the open where tourists can touch it? Nancy asked, spinning the cylinder on her finger. Not very safe. What's inside it? I don't know. It's never been opened, Oscar said. I bet I can open it, Nancy said. She lifted the cylinder above her head, then prepared to smash it against the ground. Do not harm the artifact, Oscar begged. I would never harm it. I was just, stretching my arms, Nancy said. Look at the top of this thing. That's clearly some kind of puzzle. There was a movable piece that Nancy could drag along 2 different tracks. There was also a sun that could be flipped from the left side to the right side. Yes, but no one has been able to solve it, Oscar said. My guess is that it blends Kepler's 3 laws of planetary motion with the limited astronomical knowledge of the time period in which it was made. The C at the bottom is clearly a reference to Caspar Lemon, the famed glassmaker who lived during the time of King Rudolph the... Got it, Nancy said, popping off the lid to the canister. What? Who? How did you do that so quickly? Oscar yelled. I told you I'm a genius detective who's great at solving puzzles, Nancy said. But don't tell anyone I'm a detective. I'm trying to keep it a secret, you know. The truth was, Nancy was just playing with the lid at random when it opened up. She couldn't resist spinning the planet piece around in a big circle. Nancy was just about to start spinning in a circle until she got dizzy when Oscar interrupted. Wait, it's not opened fully, he said. There's a second part to the puzzle. It looks like you need to find 4 specific symbols. There's a part 2, Nancy complained. No! Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 7. Nancy was dismayed to see that Oscar was correct. There were over 600 possible combinations for the puzzle. She probably couldn't get the correct solution by guessing. Nancy thanked Oscar and headed next door to Zlaty's Custom Jewelry. What's up? Nancy asked. I'm Nancy Drew, the super amazing detective who just solved Oscar's artifact puzzle in record time. But don't tell anyone I'm a detective, okay? I'm trying to keep it a secret. If you want to keep it a secret, why did you tell me? Vladena asked. I didn't, Nancy said. You just did. Vladena looked confused, then shook her head. I already know who you are. I was the one who asked Adela to hire you. I hope you can prove my innocence swiftly, and without asking too many annoying questions. I'm never annoying to anyone ever, Nancy lied. So what's up with you and Oscar? Are the 2 of you dating each other? Why would you say that? I hate the fool, Vladena snapped. He should have been fired for letting the museum be robbed. I should have the job of inspecting all the jewels. I am a much more talented gem appraiser. So you want to date him, but he hasn't asked you yet, Nancy said. That's not at all what I said, Vladena said. Stop wasting my time with foolish jokes. It wasn't a joke, Nancy muttered to herself. She was sincerely hoping that Oscar and Vladena would end up marrying each other because they were both gem experts. Their diamond rings would have been amazing. I come from a long line of appraisers and gemology experts, Vladena said. Many people come to me before they go to anyone else. I have only had a few complaints from greedy nobles who wanted more money. Whoa, 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 Nancy said, holding up her hands. You're saying that your jewelry store sells jewels to stay in business? Vladena glared at Nancy. Because if so, that means you have a motive, Nancy said. You could have stolen Adela's gems in order to sell them for... For money? Is that what you can do with gems? You are an idiot, Vladena said. Leave my store now. But you haven't told me about the necklace inspection yet, Nancy said. Leave now, Vladena ordered. You are too stupid to solve this case. There's no way you will be able to find all the keys. Bringing you here was a mistake. The only mistake I've ever made is loving mysteries too much, Nancy said. What do you mean you brought me here to find keys? Forget I said anything, Vladena said. Okay, Nancy agreed. She quickly forgot most of the conversation, but she remembered the important thing. Vladena and Oscar hadn't started dating yet. Chapter 8. Nancy ran across the courtyard with her arms spread wide, pretending to be an airplane. She skidded to a sudden stop outside of a large green cart. Puppet show! She cried. Praga-Slovakia is the coolest country I've ever been to! Sadly, the sign on the cart said the show would not do any performances that day. Nancy booed loudly. Well, since I can't see the awesome puppet show, I might as well complete my investigation for the day, Nancy said to herself. I've only got one suspect left. She picked up her phone and called Hans Farsinger. Hello, Mr. Hans Farsinger, Nancy said. Are you actually a singer, or is that your stage name? Who is this? Hans asked. I'm Nancy Drew, and since you live in Germany, maybe you know me from the time I stopped a monster rampage at Castle Finster, Nancy said. Where? Hans asked. Nancy growled. So Renata had lied about telling Nancy's story to everyone in Germany. That was even worse than Renata eating all the Black Forest cake without leaving any for Nancy. It's not important, Nancy said. I'm calling on behalf of Adela Cherna. Her necklace was stolen after she sent it to your company. What sort of security measures do you have in place? Fake security cameras, perhaps? Our facility here is very secure, Hans said. We catalog all jewels on Degas when we receive them, and we double-check all jewels against Degas before removing them. Who's Degas? A friend of yours? Nancy asked. Degas stands for the Digital Expert Gem Authentication System, Hans explained. It is the most sophisticated system we have for cataloging and tracking jewels. I see, Nancy said. Any chance I could get a copy of Adela's Degas file? I do not share classified material with total strangers, Miss... What was your name again? Shannon, Nancy said. Deirdre Shannon. Well, Miss Shannon, I do not appreciate your intrusive questions, Hans said. If Adela's gems were stolen, I assure you that Second Shine was not responsible. If you have anything else to say, you can talk to my lawyer. Is your lawyer named Degas? Nancy asked, but it was too late. Hans had already hung up. He was pretty defensive, Nancy said. I wonder if that's because he's hiding something. She wasn't sure if Hans was a legitimate suspect, or if he was one of those fake-out suspects who appear once and then never get seen again. Chapter 9. Nancy didn't feel like doing any more investigation, so she called her longtime boyfriend, Ned Nickerson. Hey, Ned, she said. Hey, Nance, how's the case coming along? Well, I've met all the suspects, but I need a little help, Nancy said. I need a handsome, intelligent man who's good at solving tough problems. I'd be honored to help you, Ned said. Great, Nancy said. So you'll ask Frank Hardy to call me? You want Frank to help you? Ned asked. Or Joe, but he won't stop trying to get me to work for him at the Hardy Boys Detective Agency and Cheeseburger Store, Nancy said. No offense, but his burgers are kind of nasty. Why does he think he can make burgers when he can't even make Johnny cakes? Maybe I can help you on the case, Ned said. What do the Hardys have that I don't? Years of experience and connections with international secret agents, Nancy said. I have a feeling this case is going to expand into something big, like an attempt to steal the crayon jewels. And obviously, the Hardys can help more than me, Ned sighed. Don't feel bad, Ned. You're good at lots of stuff. Oh yeah? Like what? You know, other things, Nancy said suggestively. Perhaps that line of dialogue was a bit too suggestive, because it was cut out of the game before the official release. So the testers were the only ones who got to hear it. I'm probably not allowed to say whether or not that's just a joke or if that really happened when I tested the game. Poor Ned was so shocked, he fell backwards onto the ground and didn't speak for another 3 hours. That brought a quick end to the phone call. In the meantime, Nancy called the Hardy Boys. "Hey, Nance," Joe said. "You ready to flip the spatula for an exciting career?" "No," Nancy said. "I just wanted you to know if you guys have access to Degas, spelled like it rhymes with Vegas." "Did you want to go to Las Vegas, Nancy?" Frank asked. "I bet we can solve some interesting mysteries there." "I'm in the middle of solving a mystery now," Nancy said. "Someone stole Adela Cherna's jewels, and it's a really frustrating case because I don't know how to type the accent marks over her name." "You should try calling Ned," Joe said. "I bet he has a 5-page slideshow on the topic ready to go." "Ned is lying unconscious on the ground because reasons," Nancy said. "So, do you know someone who can help?" "I know lots of doctors," Joe said. "I keep getting knocked unconscious during our investigations, so I am on a first-name basis with everyone at the Bayport General Hospital's head trauma unit." "I want someone to help me with the jewel database, not with Ned," Nancy said. She groaned. It was so annoying having to deal with detectives who said ridiculous things all the time. "Then you want Agent Zane Garrett," Frank said. "He's with the ICA, and he helped us solve a mystery in Boston, right before he helped you with the Salem mystery." "I don't like to talk about the Salem case," Nancy said. "I don't remember much of the Salem case," Joe said. "I remember that someone drugged the tea, and then I had terrible hallucinations every night for a month. It was bad." "I'll message Agent Zane and have him send you the file," Frank said. "And Nancy, if you don't have a laptop with you, you'll have to get one. The Degas file is way too complicated for a phone. It's like 2 pages long. With color." Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 10, we haven't even gotten to the stuff about keys yet. Yeah, it's kind of a long game. Nancy talked to Patricia. "I need a laptop," Nancy said. "I've got an important jewel document coming my way." "You could probably get one at Apparat Computers," Patricia said. "Tell them I sent you, and you might even get a discount." "Ugh, I don't want to buy a laptop just to read one file," Nancy complained. "I was wondering if you had a laptop I could use." "I have a laptop charger," Patricia said. "I keep it on the desk over there, next to the gentleman who sits and stares at his computer screensaver for 9 hours a day." Nancy glanced at the table. The corner of the room. There was indeed a man sitting at the table staring blankly at the computer screen. And if you play the game, he's there on like every day of the game, just staring at that computer screen, watching a screensaver. "Is he okay?" Nancy asked. "Probably not, but he orders a coffee every 2 hours, and that's all that matters to me," Patricia said. Nancy considered asking to borrow the stranger's computer when she got an even better idea. Adela! Nancy skipped to the table where Adela was sipping a coffee. "I have nothing more to say," Adela said. "Can I borrow your laptop?" Nancy asked. "I have one more thing to say," Adela said. "No." "But I need to check my email," Nancy said. "Use your phone," Adela said. "I can't. The file I'm getting is super complicated," Nancy said. "It's a list of every single time your necklace changed hands." "That is only 3 times, Adela said. "When I gave it to Vladena, when I gave it to Second Shine, and when I first got it from my mother." "Ah, but what about when the culprit stole the necklace and swapped the gems?" Nancy asked. "All we have to do is look at the column for who took the gem, and we'll see who the culprit is." "Do you really think that the thief would be stupid enough to fill out an official log and sign their name to it?" Adela asked. "The only way to find out is to check my email," Nancy said. "Look, I'll make it easy on you. Either you let me borrow your laptop, or I'm going to buy a new laptop, call it a business expense, and force you to pay for it that way. Which do you prefer?" Adela grumbled. "I suppose I should be grateful that you are so determined to solve this case." "Great," Nancy said. She pulled out her phone. "I'll let you know when the email is. Wait, I already got it." She tapped on the file and it started downloading. "Huh, it seems to be working. I don't know what Frank was all worried." "Oh no!" An annoying picture pop-up appeared on her phone. "Prove you're a human. Select all the pictures with mountains in them." "Oh no, this is way too complicated for me," Nancy said. "I'll have to get a computer expert's help after all." Chapter 11. Nancy sent an angry text to Frank as she made her way to Operate Computers. "Next time, get a secret agent who doesn't care so much about security." "How can I help you?" the blonde woman asked. "I'm a detective working on a diamond theft case with a secret agent," Nancy said. "But the problem is, I don't know how to open pictures on my phone." "Let me see," the woman said. "Is it okay if I take your phone into the back room for 10 minutes? "Only if it's okay for me to snoop through all your personal belongings while you're distracted," Nancy said. "That would be a no," the woman said. "Look, I got this email that's really important for my case," Nancy said. "I don't know how to make it work." The woman said. "Did you get a strange pop-up after you opened the file?" "I didn't get that far," Nancy said. "Look, it wants me to do something with this mountain picture." "Oh, that's simple," the woman said. "Just swap tiles until you make a picture of a mountain." "I'm a detective, not an artist," Nancy protested. "You do it for me, Miss Elka Strojnik," Elka said. "Cybersecurity expert, store owner, and relationship status, currently crushing on Radek the puppeteer. Let's be best friends." Nancy frowned. The last 12 times someone had become her instant best friend, they ended up being a criminal, trying to lull her into a false sense of security. Then again, Elka did have a cool t-shirt. "I'm Nancy Drew, and I'm glad to do anything to help my new bestie," Nancy said. She started swapping tiles on her phone when suddenly the screen turned black. A green puppet monster jumped out of the darkness, screaming. "Oh no, freaking no!" Nancy shouted. "Oh dear, I believe your phone has a virus," Elka said. "Maybe it's because you connected to the public Wi-Fi instead of using a secure line." "There's public Wi-Fi here?" Nancy asked. "Lukaji provides free Wi-Fi to all of Prague," Elka explained. "Well, now that your phone is infected, I have to take it into the back room to be fixed." "Ugh, fine, whatever," Nancy said. She slammed her phone on the counter and marched into the next room, where an old man in blue was having a whispered conference with a man in yellow. "Still no word on puppet number 12? The young man asked. Nancy instantly knew this was important. "Hold on a second, banana shirt," she said. "Did you just say puppet?" "Banana shirt?" the young man asked. "You're Radek, the hunky puppeteer," Nancy said. "Guilty as charged," Radek said, smiling. "Guilty is right," Nancy said. Someone was clearly guilty of lying if they called Radek a hunk. He was more like 15% as cute as Ned. "Why'd you cancel today's puppet show?" "My assistant didn't show up to work today, and I messed up the script," Radek said. "If only someone could help me." Nancy could tell that Radek was trying to ask for her help. Well, that was just too bad for him. Nancy Drew was never going to do someone else's chores ever again. "Good luck with that," she said. "Help Radek do the puppet show," Elka called from the next room. "You can consider that payment for fixing your phone." "Dang it," Nancy said. That's even worse than me using the exact same voice for every single character. I'm sorry, I'm not good at doing Czech accents. Chapter 12. Radek handed Nancy a bunch of random scraps of paper when they reached the marionette cart. "Here," he said, "sort these into the correct script." Why would I know the script? Nancy asked. I've never seen the play before. You can use my notes to figure out which characters say which lines, Radek said. Oh, and you have to keep track of the props. Props are surprisingly difficult to do with marionettes. I have to plan them well in advance. Can't you just improv the entire play? Nancy asked. How many times have you done it before? Oh, look, just because I did the play 6 times a day for the past 9 months, that doesn't mean I have it memorized, Radek said. Nancy groaned as she realized she didn't have her phone, so she couldn't look up a video of the performance online. Okay, give me a detailed summary of the plot, and I'll see what I can do. No time, Radek said. I need to undo the knots on the marionette strings. When they get tangled, it's a mess. Seeing as Radek was going to be no help at all, Nancy decided to solve the puzzle on her own. Scene 1 had 3 lines of dialogue, 4 frames, and 5 frame notes. 3 and 4 and 5 are totally different numbers, Nancy complained. Excuse me? Radek asked. The play starts with the king greeting everyone, but you have 4 different kings listed on the character list, Nancy said. Which one is it? Figure it out based on context, Radek advised. The context is that I don't care about your stupid puppets, Nancy muttered. She pulled out a pen and started writing new dialogue on Radek's notepaper. Radek came to check on her progress a few minutes later. Hold on, he said. King Charles doesn't punch anyone in the play. And the other character is King Rudolph II, not Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Close enough, Nancy said. So the winner of the boxing match gets the crown, while the loser is thrown off the bridge. What do you think the scroll should be used for? If you're not going to do this correctly, we can't put on the play, Radek said. I tried, and it was boring, Nancy said. Maybe next time you should have an actual script instead of taping pieces of paper together. Look, you have to do this, Radek said. It's very important that you learn the legend of the 7 keys. Why? Nancy asked. It's an important part of Czech culture, Radek said. King Leopold really did commission the creation of the 7 keys. They unlock the door to the vault that contains the crown jewels. What if one of the keys breaks in half or something? Nancy asked. Well, I imagine that someone very smart and clever might be able to find the original blueprints, Radek said. He looked at Nancy very intently. They're probably somewhere in the alchemist's lab, deep under this castle complex. Wrong, Nancy said. Wrong? Radek asked. No, I'm correct. The blueprints are totally irrelevant to my investigation, Nancy said. Why would I get a bunch of old blueprints when I've been hired to find a necklace? No, you'll have to guess again. What would happen if one of the 7 keys broke in half or something? I don't know. What? Radek asked. Then there'd be 6.5 keys, Nancy said. Ha ha! That's a great title! I think that's what I'll call this case. Mystery of the 6.5 keys. I thought you just said the keys are irrelevant to your investigation, Radek said. Nancy patted Radek on the head. I think you've spent a little too much time playing with puppets, she said. You're starting to confuse yourself. Poor Radek. But seriously, Radek's puppet puzzle is the point at which I stopped liking his character. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 13. Nancy reminded Radek not to tell anyone that she was a detective, and she headed back to Operat Computers. Elka was finished with Nancy's phone. Your phone is free of viruses and safe to use again, Elka said. What were you trying to download anyway? A DDoS database entry from an international crime-fighting agency, Nancy said. It's related to the theft of Adela Cherna's necklace, which is top secret, so don't tell anyone. I won't, Elka said. What do you normally use for protection? Oh, all sorts of things, Nancy said. I've stopped criminals with cherry pies, remote controls, and by driving around in a circle a lot. You name it, I've done it. I meant virus protection, Elka said. I'm up to date on all my flu shots, Nancy said. I meant Never mind, Elka said. I was looking for an excuse to mention my taser ring. It's very powerful and can electrocute anyone into unconsciousness in under 2 seconds. Thank you for that totally irrelevant information which has nothing to do with the conversation and which will never, ever be important to me, Nancy thought. Not wanting to be rude, though, she said something else. Have you ever accidentally electrocuted yourself when scratching your butt? Why would you ask such a thing? Elka asked, offended. That means yes, Nancy thought. So can I use my phone now? Because I've got to write a really angry email to a Mr. Frank Hardy. I can't believe his secret agent friend sent me a virus. If I ever see him again, he's getting a slap to the face. Or I could teach you how to protect your phone in the future with a little game called Cyberblock, Elka said. You want to move your tile all over the board to collect pieces of data. How does this help me keep viruses out of my phone? Nancy asked. This is just a demonstration, Elka said. It's fun, like a puzzle. You're not trying to trick me into doing your homework, are you? Nancy asked. Because that happens to me a lot. Elka launched into a long explanation for how she manages to run a computer store by herself at all hours of the day, while still managing to obtain a degree in cybersecurity. Nancy didn't understand what Elka was saying at all, but she didn't want to admit it, so she just nodded and worked on the cyberblock puzzle. It was one of those puzzles where you had to reach the goal in a limited number of moves. Nancy quickly discovered the puzzle was much easier if she pretended most of her moves didn't count towards the total. Hey, are you cheating? Elka asked. No, I'm thinking outside the box, just like a computer programmer, Nancy said. She was spared further explanation when her phone rang. Let me put this secret agent on speakerphone so everyone in the store can hear this conversation, Nancy said. Hey, Agent Zane, what's going on? I called to make sure you got my email, Zane said. Did you open the file? Not yet, Nancy said. My phone was being weird, so I had my new best friend check it out. She's a security expert. You're too kind, Elka said. Nancy opened the email again. This time, the file downloaded and opened perfectly. Got it open now, Nancy said. What am I looking for, exactly? The Degas file tracks the location history of the gems and necklace, Zane said. Pay close attention to the timestamp entries. They record when the necklace changed custody. There is nothing in the file that looks like that. What am I looking for, exactly? The Degas file tracks the location history of the gems and necklace, Zane said. Pay close attention to the timestamp entries. They record when the necklace changed custody. There's nothing in the file that looks like that, Nancy said. Mine is just a detailed description of what the necklace looks like. Check the other pages, Zane suggested. Okay. Next page is a description of Adam Sikora's diamond ring that Hansa praised, then Anita's chain necklace, and that's it, Nancy said. Most of this file has nothing to do with Adela's necklace. Are you sure? Zane asked, because I'm seeing 2 logs from Zloty Jewelers and 3 from Second Shine. Well, I've got none of that, Nancy complained. Great, I go through all this trouble to get the file and it's the wrong one. This is even worse than Braddock's puppet show, Nancy said. Ouch, Elka said. I will attempt to resend the file, Zane said. Thanks, Nancy said. Yeah, you might have noticed that Zane's description of the file bears no resemblance to the actual file Nancy gets. That's kind of annoying. Chapter 14. Nancy thanked Elka for her hard work, then ran away before Elka could hand her a bill. As she walked through the courtyard gate, Nancy checked her task list. There was a new item on it. Further investigate the Marionette Theater, then ask everyone in the city about Residente. Nancy scratched her head. Did someone write that as a joke? Why would she waste a bunch of time on puppet stuff again? There was a mystery to solve. Nancy stopped at Vladena's on her way back to the cafe. Hey, Vladena, I got the paperwork you filled out for Adela's necklace, Nancy said. Vladena sighed. That is not my paperwork. That is the monstrosity of an online system, My paperwork is in the safe. Oh, Nancy said. Can I see it? You? Please, Vladena said. No one could crack my safe. I dare you to try. Well, I did steal the Zateri sapphire when I was in Venice, but I left my hammer and dynamite at home, Nancy said. I could probably crack your safe without them, though. It looks like you made the amateur sleuth mistake of writing the combination on the outside of the safe. Indeed, Vladena had done so. She left pictures above the lock, a sun, a circle, a half-moon, and another circle. That's a code, Vladena said. The math is quite complex, involving many steps that must be taken in a specific order. Nancy spent a few moments typing on her phone. After a brief wait, she triumphantly said, Ha! It's 5457! Nancy punched in the code and the safe popped open. What? How did you do that? Vladena asked. I asked my friend Professor Hotchkiss, Nancy said. She's sort of an expert on Egyptian hieroglyphics. These are not hieroglyphics, Vladena protested. Whatever they are, they're not good enough to protect your safe, Nancy said. Speaking of which, did you know lots of people had safes in the year 1930? It's true! Nancy took Vladena's appraisal log out of the safe and compared it to the appraisal log on Degas. Although they had different description sections, they were pretty much the same. Whoa! Nancy said. The dates don't match! One says Sunday the 5th, while the other says Thursday the 3rd. Nancy spun around in a circle so she could dramatically point at Vladena. And that's impossible, because today is a Tuesday! I didn't inspect the necklace today, Vladena said sullenly. So you admit this appraisal log is a fake, Nancy said. I don't know why the Degas version of the log is wrong, Vladena said, but I assure you that no one could have tampered with my copy of the log. No one except Oscar. I left him alone in the store with the necklace for a few minutes while I helped a customer. You trust him with your valuable merchandise? Nancy asked. That's so romantic. I would not say that, Vladena said. He would have to be the world's most foolish thief to think he could steal jewels from me when I was in the middle of appraising them. Maybe he's a fool in love with you, Nancy said. You should ask him out on a date. The only fool here is you, Vladena said sourly. Chapter 15. Agent Zane called Nancy. I sent you the file again, he said. Great, Nancy said. Although privately, she didn't care. She was so done with examining Degas files. Anything coming up in your investigation that you can tell me about? Actually, yes, Zane said. Black market chatter says there's a major score coming up. With the numbers they're throwing around, it can only be the crown jewels. Someone wants to steal the crown jewels? Nancy asked. But Radek told me you need 6.5 keys to do that. There's more, Zane said. They've added biometric security to their system. You need a retina scan from one of the 7 key holders. Gee, that sounds complicated, Nancy said. If I was a thief, I'd wait for the jewels to go on display before stealing them. Where would you even find one of the key holders? The Dean of St. Vitus is a key holder, Vladena said. Nancy blinked. She had forgotten Vladena was even in the room. Who? Father Leo Sokol, Vladena said. His office is connected to the museum. I heard he's leaving on vacation today. So if he was kidnapped, nobody would notice he's missing, Zane said. Exactly, Vladena said. Who am I speaking to? Zane asked. One of your associates? This is Vladena Zloty, one of the main suspects in the necklace theft case, Nancy said. You put me on speakerphone in front of a suspect? Zane asked. I always have my phone on speaker mode, Nancy said. I don't know how to turn it off. George showed me once, but I forgot. Perhaps we should communicate by email from now on, Zane said. Nancy didn't think much of this idea. Zane's first email had a virus, and his second one had an incorrect file. I think text messages might be better, Nancy said. Fine by me, Zane said. Let me know what happens with Leo. But I'm not, Nancy started to say. It was too late. Zane had already hung up. Ugh, Nancy complained. First puppets, then phone security. Now I've got to check in on this Leo guy? I swear, I've been given so many different tasks. It's like people are trying to prevent me from solving the necklace mystery. Perhaps this Agent Zane is the thief, and he's distracting you on purpose, Vladena said with a smirk. Nancy thought about it. Maybe. Nancy thanked the ungrateful Vladena, and she made her way to the museum, where Oscar was standing in place, looking bored. Nancy went up the large staircase in the back and opened the large doors without meeting any resistance. Looks like Oscar was right. The back entrance to the museum is kept unlocked at all times, Nancy thought. It'd be fairly easy for a thief to sneak in through here. They should put up a "Do Not Rob Museum" sign. Nancy went down the hallway, which led to a hallway, which led to a hallway. She was about to say something sarcastic about hallways when she noticed an open door next to a candle display. Love is an open door, Nancy said happily as she entered the room. It was a small waiting room. A sign on the desk said the secretary was gone on a coffee break. Nancy thought about messing with the secretary's computer. A screensaver with a silly message on it seemed like an appropriate prank, but she quickly spied a door labeled Dean of St. Vitus Cathedral. Nancy wasn't sure who Dean was, but she quickly entered the forbidden office. 2 seconds later, the door closed behind her, and she heard 2 men arguing. Nancy wondered how she hadn't seen the men earlier if they were that close behind her the whole time. I am here to meet with the Dean, the one man said. Nancy identified his voice as Oscar's. We need to discuss the security for the upcoming Crown Jewels exhibition. Oh, I'm sorry, but the Dean has already left on his trip, the other voice said. Nancy guessed he was the coffee-loving secretary. And I'm afraid he won't be getting back until after the exhibit has opened. By then it will be too late, Oscar said. I'm sorry, but the Dean's schedule is very tight, and he doesn't always have time to attend to, shall we say, more minor details. This is utterly ridiculous, Oscar said. I'm the director of the Gems exhibit, and there have been threats made against the safety of the Crown Jewels. Why do you keep preventing me from providing adequate security? The secretary took a long sip of coffee. The Dean is responsible for security, not you, he said. I fail to see how you should be connected to our plans in any way. The gems are being placed in my museum. It is so hard to do, like, 2 different British people talking to each other. I'm sorry, this is rough. The gems are being placed in my museum, Oscar said. I don't want a repeat of the gem theft of 20 years ago. Yes, it would be a dreadful shame if your shoddy museum was robbed yet again, the secretary said. Perhaps you should consider investing in better security. You won't let me, Oscar said, fuming. When the Dean returns, I demand to meet with him instantly. If the Crown Jewels are harmed in any way, I will make sure that the blame falls upon you. There was a loud slamming of a door after this. Nancy figured Oscar had stormed out of the office. You'll never get to meet with the Dean, the secretary said in a rude voice. That's what you get for stealing my parking spot last week, you jerk! Author's note: that is obviously the real reason why the secretary was so mean to Oscar. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 16. Nancy found herself trapped in the Dean's office. There was no way she could leave without the secretary noticing her. She'd either have to wait for the secretary to leave, or she'd have to find another exit. Nancy considered throwing one of the statue heads through the expensive-looking stained-glass window when she heard a cat meowing. Kitty, 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 kitty! Nancy cried, clapping her hands together. The cat sounded like it was on the other side of the wall. Nancy looked for a way to reach the cat when she saw a tile puzzle built into the wall behind the desk. Oh, geez, Nancy said. It's Yumi's bento boxes all over again. There were 12 different tiles, which were a combination of 3 different shapes, 3 different colors, and 4 different symbols. Nancy stared at them. Okay, what am I supposed to do with this? Nancy asked. The tiles didn't answer her. What are the rules of the puzzle? Is it something like no 2 pieces of the same shape can be next to each other? Each piece must share a shape or color with the piece next to it? Each column needs to have an even number of sides? What am I supposed to do here? It took Nancy a while to notice that someone had carved faint instructions on the wood paneling on both sides of the puzzle. One instruction said the square crown piece was under a sword. Another said a triangle was next to a sword. They weren't very helpful, but they were better than nothing. Nancy's annoyance increased when she realized the colors were totally irrelevant to the puzzle solution. In the end, Nancy didn't solve the puzzle. She had the right solution, but the cabinet wouldn't accept it. In a fit of rage, Nancy started throwing books all over the room. She discovered a hidden passageway behind a cabinet when she knocked it to the ground. "Mariash, be quiet in there!" the secretary yelled from the other room. Mariash, the cat, came bounding out of the hidden passageway. Nancy opened her arms to pick up the cute orange cat. Mariash completely ignored her and went straight to his food bowl instead. "Fine! I didn't want to play with you either," Nancy said to the cat. Nancy entered the hidden passageway, which was a spiral staircase. At the bottom, she saw a playing card and 2 footprints. Crap, maybe this Leo guy was kidnapped after all, Nancy said to herself. The staircase led to some sort of ancient tunnel system built over 1,000 years ago. It was surprisingly well lit, although Nancy could see some spooky-looking fog building up in one of the tunnels. "I've got to get out of here!" Nancy cried. Nancy took a few steps down one pathway when a shadowy skeleton knight appeared out of the darkness. It groaned and walked straight towards her. "Nope," Nancy said. She threw a coffee mug at the skeleton and ran back up the staircase behind her. Chapter 17. Leo's secretary wasn't in the office when Nancy returned. She was easily able to leave the building and return to the cafe. Adela was still sitting in her chair drinking coffee. Nancy had to wonder if Adela had moved at all in the past few hours. "Nancy," Adela said, "my laptop has been hacked. I got a weird pop-up, and now it won't respond to anything I do." "Take it to a computer repair person," Nancy suggested. "We've got bigger problems. Father Leo Dean of the St. Vitus Cathedral was just kidnapped and taken into underground tunnels by a skeleton knight." "What?" Adela asked. "Secret Agent Zane says it's all part of a big plot to steal the crown jewels," Nancy said. "Unless Leo was kidnapped for a completely different reason, like, plot twist, he owed money to the owner of a Halloween costume store. That'd explain the skeleton outfit." "So that's why my necklace was stolen," Adela said. "Someone plans to use my gems as convincing substitutes for the real royal gems." Yeah, that's totally what I was thinking too," Nancy said. "I have definitely been on task the whole time. Yep." "But in order to steal the crown jewels, Father Leo would not be enough," Adela said. "You'd also need the original blueprints, which were kept in the alchemy lab. And no one has seen that for hundreds of years." Nancy nodded. That was great news. The alchemy lab was so well hidden, there was no chance of the culprit finding it. All Nancy had to do was sit back and relax, while the culprit wasted all their time on the impossible task of locating the blueprints. "That means you have to find it," Adela continued. Nancy frowned. "Me? As in, me?" she asked. "You just said it's been lost for hundreds of years." "The only way to make sure it's safe is to find it before the thieves do," Adela said. "If you get there first, you can lay a trap for the thieves." Nancy sighed. She knew exactly what would happen next. She would bust her butt solving ancient puzzles in order to locate a fabulous treasure, only for the culprit to swoop in at the last second and try to steal it. That had happened to her at least 20 times already. You have a good point, but have you maybe considered just buying yourself a new necklace? Nancy asked. That'd be way less of a hassle. You must find my mother's necklace, Adela said. Without it, I can't... Well, there is something special I want to do with it. Nancy's suspicions were aroused. You're not lying to me, are you? She asked. Is there a secret reason why you want the necklace back? My reasons are my own, Adela said. I want to trust you, Adela, but there's no getting around the fact that we're basically strangers, and the first thing you did to me was lie about your identity as part of a test, Nancy said. So if you don't tell me the truth about the necklace right now, I might decide to go back home. Adela sighed. Fine, she said. I didn't wish to tell anyone, but I only pretended to sell my necklace. So the entire case is a lie? Nancy asked. No, Adela said. The truth is, I put my necklace on the market because I was looking for its original owner. My grandmother says she got it from a noble family, in exchange for providing food and shelter during the war. And that means there are tons of new motives and possible culprits for me to investigate, Nancy said. Thanks a lot. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? It does not matter, Adela said. Forget my necklace. Concentrate on protecting the crown jewels. They are far more important. Adela was the one paying for Nancy's trip back home, so Nancy was forced to agree. Chapter 18. Nancy knew she didn't have a lot of time. She and the culprit were in a race to see who could find the alchemist's lab first. The only problem was that she had no idea where to start. Hey, Patricia, if you wanted to hide an ancient alchemy lab, where would you put it? Nancy asked. The only secret place I know is the hidden underground tunnels, Patricia said. Yeah, but there's a murdering skeleton knight down there, and I'd rather not deal with him again, Nancy said. Then perhaps check the museum. I understand Oscar has an artifact that was recently excavated from the tunnels, Patricia said. Yeah, it was excavated in like 3 seconds. That excavated quickly. I remember seeing that earlier, Nancy said. Guess that means I'd better take a closer look at it. Thanks, Patricia. You're a lifesaver. How do you know all this important information? I serve coffee, Patricia said. You overhear a lot of things when you serve coffee. Nancy smiled until she remembered that Oscar's artifact had a puzzle lock which was more confusing than the super long narration at the start of Lord of the Rings, which tried to explain 100 pages of backstory. Yeah, I didn't understand anything during the intro of Lord of the Rings. I need to find 4 symbols in order to open the artifact, Nancy said. There must be a clue somewhere. There was a clue. The glass poem in Vladena's door. Nancy hadn't noticed it because it was see-through. It didn't help that the poem was posted high on the wall in a bright spot. Nancy returned to the museum. Hey, Oscar the Grouch, Nancy said. Have you given any thought to dating Vladena? The angry woman who works next door, Oscar asked. The one who always complains that I should be fired. Yeah, that's the one, Nancy said. I think she has a crush on you. I highly doubt that, Oscar said. She's hated me ever since I offered to buy her store and convert it into a museum gift shop. Don't sell yourself short, Nancy said. I'm sure she loves you even more than King Leozold loved lecturing the scribe on crowns. Or something like that. I wasn't paying attention during Radek's play. Anyway, I'm here to open your artifact. Oscar scoffed. You cannot even begin to understand the history behind this device. Nancy ignored Oscar as he launched into a lecture on Rudolph II's royal court. She picked up the artifact and made her best guesses about the picture combination. Clearly, the correct solution had the skeleton holding a cage, because that was too creepy to be made up as a false option. The Ouroboros had to be another correct symbol, because Nancy had gone through all the trouble of memorizing Ouroboros in Blackmore Manor, and she wanted another excuse to use that word. Nancy had no idea about the other symbols. Maybe the royal orb because it looked cool? She looked around for inspiration when she saw a suit of armor in the corner by the stairs. "What the heck is that?" Nancy yelled, pointing. "That is our display on the night of Dalibor," Oscar said stuffily. "You would know that if you bothered to read the plaque." "Display nothing," Nancy said. "That's the guy who tried to kill me in the tunnels." "The tunnels are closed off to the public," Oscar said. "You cannot possibly have gone in there." "Who are you going to chase now, you jerk?" Nancy yelled. She ran to the suit of armor and started punching it repeatedly. "Stop that! Don't touch the displays!" Oscar cried. "Not until the culprit confesses," Nancy said. Her hand started to hurt, so she began hitting the suit with the artifact. "Why won't you talk?" Oscar tackled Nancy from behind, and the entire suit of armor fell to the ground in pieces. "Oh, I get it," Nancy said. "It was just the costume, not the culprit." "You are a menace, Miss Drew," Oscar yelled. "I've heard that before," Nancy said. Then she noticed something on the ground, among all the metal. "What's this?" "Get out of my museum," Oscar yelled. "You are hereby banned for life." "I don't know what hereby means," Nancy complained. "It means you can never, ever return to the museum," Oscar said. "And don't even think about sneaking back in during the unguarded nighttime tours." All right, Nancy said, figuring she could always sneak in through the door by Leo's office if she ever needed. "I can tell when I'm not wanted, but you probably want to—" "Get out!" Oscar yelled again. I'm going, Nancy said angrily. She stood up and marched out of the museum with as much dignity as she could muster, which in this case means she only bumped into 2 displays by accident. Oscar slammed the door and locked the door behind her. "I guess he doesn't want to know what I found," Nancy said. She pulled out the important items that she had scooped into her purse. They were a trio of gems, which had fallen out of the artifact after she used it as a hammer. There were also some old papers, which had been hidden inside the suit of armor. A closer inspection revealed that they were blueprints for keys. "Oh, sweet! I found a bunch of important items, and the culprit can't use that night disguise again," Nancy said. "Better yet, there's no gift shop, so the culprit can't buy a second disguise. Best detective ever!" Here's an alternate ending. Nancy tried every possible combination until she got it right. The artifact popped open, revealing 3 jewels. "Oh, sweet! I'm the best detective ever," Nancy said. "You opened the artifact," Oscar said. "But how? You're a total amateur with no knowledge of Prague's history." "Yeah, but I'm really good at puzzles," Nancy said. "I've been working as a museum director for decades," Oscar said. "I spent all my life and money pursuing an advanced history degree, only to be shown up by some American teenager who doesn't even know the difference between King Rudolph II and King Leopold." "Sorry for making you look bad," Nancy said. "Don't worry, I'm sure your history degree will come in useful for something. Maybe you can sell it at a garage sale?" Oscar ran away from the building, crying. Nancy shrugged and slipped the jewels into her pocket. Yeah, that was originally going to be the ending to the chapter, but I thought it was funnier for Nancy to get super violent and just attack an empty suit of armor. So I went with that instead of the ending where Nancy makes Oscar cry. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 19. Nancy wasn't sure what to do next, so she wandered around Prague, talking to everyone she saw. Eventually, she made her way to Merrick's, where she quickly noticed a new item by the window. "Whoa, Merrick! It looks like your store has some trunk in the junk," Nancy said. "That is an alchemist trunk, which is over 500 years old," Merrick said. "No one has ever been able to open it without breaking it. That I won't do." "I bet I can open it," Nancy said. "I'm good at opening old artifacts. I just opened the one at the museum by smashing it against a helmet." No smashing, Merrick said. Ugh, fine, Nancy said. She looked at the trunk and saw that it had a bunch of buttons sticking out. Has anyone tried pressing the buttons yet? What buttons? Merrick asked. I'll take that as a no, Nancy said. She began pushing buttons at random and quickly realized it was a puzzle to push all the buttons in a particular order. Every time she pressed an incorrect button, the puzzle reset itself. She eventually figured out the solution through brute force. I think this is the first puzzle she solved legitimately in this story. Way to go, Nancy! And yes, I know, this is not exactly how the puzzle works in the actual game, but don't complain about that. Just let Nancy have this victory. The lid of the trunk opened. Inside was a marionette. Not this again, Nancy said, picking it up and throwing it into the wall. Underneath it was a series of jewel-shaped indentations. Nancy inserted the jewels she stole from the museum. The bottom drawer of the trunk opened, revealing a tiny key. What the heck is this for? Nancy wondered. She checked her pockets. She had Adela's letter, a lock of Raddick's hair, a postcard she never paid for, 3 pounds of coffee grounds, and the locked snow globe. Oh, duh, Nancy said. The key fit into the hole at the bottom of the snow globe. The picture changed to some buildings, along with the words, "Check the underground tunnels." Nancy groaned as she realized that was her next destination. Before leaving, she tried to tell Merrick about her discovery, but he interrupted her and talked about alchemists playing hide-and-seek or something like that. Nancy was a little confused that Merrick didn't care to learn what was inside his ancient trunk, but maybe that was for the best. He probably wouldn't be happy to learn Nancy opened it with stolen gems. I thought I came to Prague to stop a gem theft, not to commit one, Nancy thought. Nancy returned to the hidden tunnels, which were thankfully empty. If that creepy knight returned, she was going to throw the snow globe at his head. The tunnels contained a bunch of closed doors and artwork. Nancy wondered why none of it had been moved upstairs to the museum. After enough searching, Nancy found a picture that perfectly matched the scene in the snow globe. Now what? She asked. Am I supposed to visit the location in this picture or something? Nancy tried pulling the art off the wall. It was heavy. Too heavy. Either it had been carved out of rock, or there was something hidden underneath it. Nancy leaned against the wall and thought about what to do next. What Nancy hadn't noticed was some oddly shaped holes in the wood underneath the picture. She was supposed to use the snow globe as a key to unlock a light-based puzzle with over 15 pieces. Solving the hidden puzzle would reveal the hidden door to the alchemist's lab. While the puzzle was still intact and could be solved as intended, the ropes holding it up were not in good shape after 500 years. Merely touching the wall was more than enough pressure to trigger the door mechanism. The hidden door in the wall flung open. Whoa, what? Whoa! Nancy cried as she fell to the ground. She stood up, rubbing her hurt shoulder. It took her half a minute to realize what had just happened. I found the alchemist's lab! Nancy cheered. Then, in case somebody was watching, she added, I meant to do that. Yeah, she totally found it on purpose. She didn't, accidentally find a hidden door just by leaning against the wall. Nope. She's a great detective. Author's note, snow globes were invented in Germany in the year 1900. So it's unlikely that a snow globe key would have been inside an alchemy trunk from the 1500s. Maybe the alchemist was a time traveler. Or maybe someone changed the key to a snow globe later on. Either way, Patricia has some explaining to do. Explaining which she never does. Chapter 20. 500 years ago. The alchemist was showing off his laboratory to King Rudolph II. I've already given my trunk to Marelka, he said. It can only be opened with the jewels I gave to Oskadena. Inside is the key, which must be used on the snow globe to unlock the door to this lab. What's a snow globe? King Rudolph II asked. I have no idea, the alchemist said. The point is that it will be nearly impossible for a villain to gather all the items necessary to even enter the laboratory. And even if they did, I have taken steps to ensure that only the truly worthy will be able to find the blueprints for the 7 keys. And what are these steps? King Rudolph II asked. Check the book, your majesty, the alchemist said. There are over 100 different books in here, the king said. Exactly, the alchemist said. Only a true alchemist would be able to determine that this, he tapped on a black book, is the correct tome. Only a true alchemist could decipher the instructions and create the formula necessary to reveal the combination to my safe. King Rudolph II smiled. It is good to hear that the blueprints will not fall into the wrong hands, he said. Only the greatest of intellects could bypass our puzzles. Present day. What do you call a chemist named Al? Nancy said. An alchemist! Nancy did a sideways dance as she entered the alchemy lab. She stopped dancing when she bumped into a desk covered with papers, old books, and a peculiar black rock. Picking it up, she ran her fingers against the cold metal. This was definitely not a naturally formed rock. A human must have made it. I think there's something inside, Nancy said. I need to get it out, somehow. She threw the rock against the wall, causing it to crack. A few more throws and it fell apart completely, revealing a rectangular block with 3 symbols. Oh, that is so much easier than doing the alchemy puzzle as intended. My gosh. It did take Nancy long to realize that the symbols on the block matched with a lock on a nearby cabinet. Opening safes is easy when you know the combination, Nancy said. The cabinet contained several coins and gems, which she slipped into her purse. She also found an old book. The Alchemist's Journal, Nancy cheered. It'll have the blueprints for the 6.5 keys. All I have to do is make sure they're safe and... Wait. The journal wasn't written in English. This makes less sense to me than the list of ingredients on my cereal boxes, Nancy said. Who can I get to translate this thing? I could ask Oscar, but he's mad at me right now. I could ask Radek, but he might talk about marionettes again. I could ask Patricia, but I'm not sure how to do that without letting it slip that I'm a detective. Nancy eventually decided to ask Adela to translate the journal. She left the alchemist's lab and tried to leave the hidden tunnels. She quickly ran into a problem. Hey, who locked the exit door? Nancy complained. Nobody knows I'm down here. Now I gotta find another way out. She looked around for an exit sign, but found none. She wandered the tunnels, trying every single door she found. They were all locked. Hey, Prague Castle! Blackmore Manor just called, Nancy said. They want their secret alchemy lab and creepy tunnels back. Since every single door and passage in the place looked exactly the same, it was mere luck when Nancy found the correct one. The door led to a rock-lined hallway with skeletons and a cage. Creepy, Nancy said. She walked to the end of the tunnel, which was a locked door. Then she turned left and went down a side passageway. She climbed up the conveniently placed ladder, which somehow led her to the fountain in the plaza. Standing at the base of the ladder was a confused skeleton knight. Did she even notice I was chasing her for the past 5 minutes? He asked. Maybe this costume isn't as scary as I thought. Since the skeleton knight always appears behind Nancy and never in front of her, it is possible to do those challenges without even realizing you're being chased. Chapter 21. Nancy had gone from nighttime in the tunnels to nighttime in the courtyard. She wondered exactly how long she had spent inside the tunnels. Surely it hadn't been more than 5 hours. Nancy's phone rang, playing the song Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. She quickly answered it. Adela, hi, Nancy said. I was just about to call you. I found the Alchemist's Journal, but I can't read it. I'm going to need you to translate it. Okay, Adela said. What's the first sentence? It's a section called Hakuna Matata, Nancy said. Haranka, Adela corrected her. That's Czech for puzzle or riddle. Right. Can you translate, everything in this section for me? Nancy said. I don't know ancient Czech, or modern Czech, really. All I did to prepare for this case was watch the Cat in the Hat movie, which has a joke about Czechoslovakia, which isn't a country anymore. So I have no idea how that script got past the fact-checkers. I'd love to translate the journal for you, Adela said, but I have other plans tonight. I won't be able to get the journal from you until 3 a.m. at the earliest. What are you doing tonight that's more important than stopping the biggest jewel heist of the century? Nancy asked. I was invited to a killer party, Adela said. The after party's at the Hungerkünstler Cafe, so just leave the journal there and I'll pick it up then. Okay, Nancy said. When can I expect a finished translation? I'll message you as soon as I can, Adela said. Nancy wasn't entirely sure how much she could trust Adela on this one, but a free translation was a free translation. Then I guess I'll leave the journal with Patricia, she said. Oh, Patricia doesn't work nights, Adela said. I'll leave it with her assistant then, Nancy said. She doesn't have one of those, Adela said. I'll leave it with whoever is working at the cafe, Nancy said. Bye. Nancy hung up the phone and went into the cafe, only to discover that nobody was working. The area behind the counter was completely empty. Anyone could easily walk up and take whatever they wanted. This place is lucky it doesn't get robbed, Nancy said, before rethinking her statement. There were a few customers in the cafe who would probably notice if she stole a coffee machine. It wasn't completely unguarded. This place is slightly harder to rob than the museum, Nancy corrected herself. She threw the book at the counter, then pulled out her phone to text Patricia. She paused as she saw that she had 12 new text messages. One was from Deirdre Shannon. Drew, why is some guy in Germany threatening to sue me? I swear, if I find out you had something to do with this. All the other texts were from an anonymous number. The first one looked like secret instructions to a puzzle. This is the puzzle that Nancy gets at the very start of the game. I purposely had her, not notice it until halfway through. The message read, We love our past. You don't belong here. An hour later, there was a second message. Do you need a hint? Because it looks like you haven't solved this puzzle yet. Okay, here's a hint. Check the bold letters. They refer to something inside the cafe. You still haven't solved the puzzle yet? Okay, more hints. Notice how each bold letter refers to a section of the library? Notice how the library sections have numbers? Enter the correct numbers into the phone for a map. Wow, it looks like you still haven't solved this puzzle yet? Okay, the map leads you to a book, but it's locked. Maybe the numbers on the map will help? Don't forget the map is upside down. The math isn't that bad. It's all a bunch of single-digit addition and subtraction. Don't be scared. It's been over 12 hours and you still haven't taken the key from the book yet? This is ridiculous. I didn't make the puzzle that hard. Look, here's a picture of the correct solution. I took it from Arglefumph's YouTube channel. No, I didn't make a second account just so I could subscribe to his channel twice. That'd be weird. Nancy shook her head. She definitely should have checked her phone earlier that day. It sounded like her unknown helper, whoever it was, had gotten increasingly frustrated with her lack of progress with the book puzzle. Nancy quickly located the correct book and spun the dials to the correct numbers. The book opened up, revealing a large black key. All right, I got one of the 6.5 keys, Nancy said, and it only took 21 chapters, too. At this rate, I'll have the mystery solved before chapter 137. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 22. Gee, I wonder who set up this long and complicated puzzle to give me one of the keys, Nancy said. Didn't Radek say you have to be the president of the Czech Republic in order to get one? I should really tell someone that the president was robbed. Nancy shrugged. Surely the key would be explained when the mystery was solved. No way would a major plot element like that be overlooked. Hey, Nancy, Radek called as she went through the courtyard. Want to chat about Residente for a few minutes? No! Nancy called back. I've got to call my boyfriend, who is way better looking than you are. Why would you feel the need to bring that up? Radek whimpered sadly. Nancy returned to her hotel room where she had a lovely dinner at an overpriced restaurant and went to sleep. At 3:15 a.m. in the morning, she was awoken by a text from Adela. Nancy, dude, that translation is like so simple. You should have just used an online translator. It says I hid the 6.5 blueprints in 3 different places, solved my riddles to find them. And you don't even have to bother, bruh. I solved the riddles myself. They're totally candle, suit of armor, and time. Didn't you say you already found blueprints in a suit of armor? Dude? Nancy turned off her phone and went back to sleep. The next morning, she got ready to solve the alchemist's clever riddles. Clearly, candles referred to the candle display near Leo's office. She went there and stared at it. There are letters on this display case. Definitely a puzzle, Nancy said. She stared at the puzzle. So, now what? Nancy asked. Am I supposed to spell out a word or something? Am I supposed to light the candles? Nancy messaged Adela, asking if there was a specific word she needed to spell out. Adela didn't respond, which was unhelpful. To the left of the candles was a slot adorned with the alchemy symbol for copper. The alchemist intended for someone to see the symbol, then activate the puzzle using one of the copper coins from the lab. Sadly, Nancy wasn't symbol-minded. She thought it was just some weird design. Open! 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 Nancy said, hitting the candle display. There was clearly a secret drawer built into the desk. It was a different color than the rest of the desk. Nancy pulled on it, but it wouldn't open. Nancy reached into her purse and pulled out her ever-useful crowbar. Jamming it in between the desk and the drawer, she pulled with all her might until the drawer fell off. Nancy smiled as she bent down and picked up the now-broken drawer. There were blueprints inside. 2 riddles down, 1 to go. For a moment, Nancy considered she didn't have to solve the last riddle. She already had most of the blueprints. She could easily destroy the blueprints now, forever spoiling the culprit's plan to recreate the 6.5 keys from the original blueprints. But that wouldn't be very interesting now, would it? No, she's gotta find that last set of blueprints. The last riddle was time, which clearly referred to the clock inside the cafe. Nancy ran into the cafe, ready to smash it to pieces with her crowbar, but Patricia stopped her. Nancy wasn't sure what time and date to set the clock to. She tried messaging Ned for help. He responded with a 5-page lecture on the history of the Prague astronomical clock. Nancy... okay. The last riddle was time, which clearly referred to the clock inside the cafe. Nancy ran into the cafe, ready to smash it to pieces with her crowbar, but Patricia stopped her. Nancy wasn't sure what time and date to set the clock to. She tried messaging Ned for help. He responded with a 5-page lecture on the history of the Prague astronomical clock. Nancy responded with a picture of Homer Simpson yelling, "Nerd!" Nancy saw the bottom of the clock had something about King Rudolph II's coronation on it. She tried looking it up online, but all she got were weird clickbait articles about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer catching coronavirus. Only one thing can help me now: gullible tourists, Nancy said. She made a sign that said, "Clock Challenge! Set this model clock to the correct date and time! Win a free snow globe!" She slipped the clock into her purse and set up the challenge in the courtyard, directly in front of the real Prague astronomical clock. Sure enough, plenty of tourists tried their hands at the puzzle. Before the hour was over, Nancy had the next set of blueprints, and one lucky tourist had a 500-year-old snow globe. Chapter 23. Okay, so maybe I rushed through Nancy solving those puzzles. Whatever, those puzzles are not fun to solve. Now that I have all the blueprints, I should make the keys, Nancy said. Then I have to close my eyes and hope really, really hard that the culprit doesn't steal the keys to the treasure like they did the last 10 times I did something like this. Nancy had no idea how to forget keys. Forged keys, not forget. Fuck. Chapter 23. Now that I have all the blueprints, I should make the keys, Nancy said. Then I have to close my eyes and hope really, really hard that the culprit doesn't steal the keys to the treasure, like they did the last 10 times I did something like this. Nancy had no idea how to forge keys. She thought about looking it up when her phone started playing "It's Gonna Be Me." Recognizing Ned's ringtone, she instantly answered. "Nancy, I'm sorry," Ned said. I wish I had better news." "Oh my God! Did my dad die from a heart attack?" Nancy asked. "No," Ned said. "Was it a stroke, an aneurysm? Did he get hit by a car driven by the same terrorist who killed my mother?" Nancy asked. She knew she should have identified the terrorist during her case in Scotland, but she had gotten too distracted by bagpipes and playing cards. "Your dad is still alive," Ned said loudly. "Then what's the bad news?" Nancy asked. "Hans is no longer a suspect," Ned said. "Your dad and I cleared him of all suspicion. His business is definitely legitimate." Nancy paused for a moment. "Who?" she asked. "Hans Farzinger of Secondshine?" Ned said. You wanted me to investigate him?" "All right, Nancy said. "Sorry, the case has moved on a lot since then. Now I'm trying to stop thieves from stealing the crown jewels of Prague." "That sounds dangerous," Ned said. "You don't know the half of it," Nancy said. "I've traveled through creepy old tunnels. I've been forced to write a puppet show that didn't include Kermit the Frog, and I was chased by an evil ghost knight." "An evil ghost knight?" Ned gasped. "He's chased me all over Prague," Nancy exaggerated. "It's like he always knows where I am at every second of the day." "Did someone put a tracker on your phone, maybe?" Ned asked. "Maybe," Nancy said. "My phone did get hacked yesterday. Maybe this is part of a leftover virus or something." "You should send your phone to a repair shop," Ned said, "or leave it in your hotel room so the ghost can't follow you anymore." "Or I can use it as bait in a trap," Nancy said enthusiastically. "I put my phone in a secluded area, I wait until the villain shows up, then I bust out my fighting moves and kick some butt. It'll be dangerous because I can't call for backup, but I think it'll work. Thanks, Ned." "No, wait, at least ask Adela to help watch," Ned started to say, but it was too late. Nancy hung up on him so she could start Operation Culprit Capture. But where could she do it? She considered using the secluded construction area on the far side of the square, but that didn't make sense. The culprit would have to walk all the way across a large square in full costume to reach that area. No, she needed an indoor location, somewhere that no one would want to go to. "Zloty Jewelers," Nancy said. "Vladena's such a jerk, she never gets customers." Conveniently, there's nobody inside the store that day. Not even Vladena. Nancy wondered why Vladena left her store open and unattended, but she considered that Oscar, Radek, Patricia, and Elka all did the same thing. Maybe it was a Prague thing. Nancy set up a group of cardboard boxes around the door. "Empty boxes are an inescapable trap," she said. She locked the door and propped it open in such a way that when the culprit entered, the locked door would close behind them, cutting off the exit. It was nighttime before the culprit arrived. Nancy thought it was incredibly rude of the culprit to make her wait hours and hours. What, did the culprit have a day job or something? If Nancy had known the culprit would take so long, she would have spent the day having fun in Prague, doing tourist stuff on Adela's dime. The doorknob rattled ominously as the skeleton knight slowly opened it. Nancy could hear his heavy breathing as he stepped into the store, clouds of smoke emanating from his body. "Boo!" Nancy yelled. The culprit jumped and accidentally fell backwards on the door. He quickly got up and panicked, seeing there were boxes on the floor in front of him, with a locked door behind him. "You're trapped," Nancy said confidently. "Now take off the mask. It's time to see who this skeleton knight really is." The knight slumped over in defeat. He lifted up his hands and pulled off the mask, revealing a familiar face. It's Radek, the creepy puppet master! Or should I say, Radek the Lukaji? Nancy said. She was happy for a chance to show off she knew Lukaji was Czech for puppet master, since this was almost certainly the only time in her life that information would ever come in handy. You know about Lukaji's blackmail too? Radek asked. You really are the world's greatest detective, Nancy Drew. Darn tootin', Nancy said. She smiled in satisfaction, then paused. Wait, what blackmail? Chapter 24. Lukaji is blackmailing me, Radek explained. They wanted me to dress up in this costume and chase you so you'd solve the mystery faster. How is bringing a random monster into the mix supposed to get me to solve the mystery faster? Nancy complained. That makes no sense. I don't make the decisions, I just follow orders, Radek said. I get the sense that Lukaji is getting desperate, because the Crown Jewels exhibit opens this weekend. They don't have a lot of time left to get the blueprints. I already found the blueprints this morning, Nancy said. Guess I solved the mystery sooner than you expected. What do you want with these blueprints? I've been ordered to steal them from you, Radek admitted. I freaking knew it! Nancy cried. Well, you can tell Lukaji to kiss my big fat... Nancy was interrupted by the arrival of Merrick. What's going on in here? Merrick asked. Oops, Nancy said. When making her trap, she had forgotten that there were 2 doors to the building. Good thing Radek had entered through the booby-trapped one. Nancy captured me, so I'm confessing everything, Radek said. What else can I do? Nancy pondered that for a second. How else could this culprit confrontation have gone? You'd better start telling me why you're here, Nancy said. I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt you, Radek said. That has nothing to do with what I just said, Nancy pointed out. Why were you following me? I can't explain now, okay? We should get out of here, Radek said. Why? Nancy asked. Look, I'm not the only one who knows where we are, Radek said. That is the 3rd time in a row you've completely ignored my question and said something unrelated, Nancy said. I'm not going to let you get away with that. Tell me why you're here. I'm sorry. They didn't really give me a choice, Radek said. Who's they? Nancy asked. Are you trying to say you were forced to follow me? They sent me the tracking software, Radek said. I've never needed it before in my work, but I didn't have a choice. Who's they? Nancy repeated. We shouldn't discuss this here. Let's go back to Operat, Radek said. Quit ignoring my questions! Nancy screamed. Yes, it would have been far more frustrating if Radek and Merrick had spent 7 minutes ignoring Nancy and talking about unrelated things. Good thing they were being direct and straightforward in their confession. In case you didn't get the joke, that's all stuff that Radek says during this scene in the game. In the actual game, he is annoyingly off topic. Nancy snapped out of her daydream in time to hear Merrick mumble something about his dead daughter. Okay, I definitely heard everything you said, but just for the sake of thoroughness, maybe you should explain it all from the beginning again, like I'm hearing it for the first time, Nancy said. I was just explaining that you have the blueprints that Lukaji wants, Radek said. I'm supposed to steal them from you. And I'm supposed to use them to make the 7 keys, Merrick said. After that, I give them to Lukaji in a dead drop at the statue. Once that's done, Lukaji promises to give up the blackmail. They must have some pretty serious blackmail material on you, if you're willing to go this far, Nancy said. What do they have on you? Are you part of an underground crime league or something? They have an embarrassing photo of us at a Christmas party together, Radek said. Merrick dared me to kiss one of my puppets because I've never had a girlfriend, and, things got weird from there. Ah, Nancy said. Well, the way I see it, we have 2 choices. You can mess up the keys on purpose so Lukaji can't steal the crown jewels, or you can put a tracker in the keys so I can secretly follow them and catch the real culprit red-handed. Weeks later, Nancy would realize that using a tracker wasn't that great of an idea. She knew where the culprit would take the 7 keys, to the door of the vault with the crown jewels. Nancy could have just gone there directly with the police and waited for the culprit to appear. That would have been much easier than bringing a tracker into the mix. But alas, Nancy didn't think of that until later. She was forced to use Merrick's old-fashioned tracking device. It didn't work very well. Nancy was forced to wander around in circles saying, "Is it here? Is it here? Is it here?" until she found the correct coordinates. Once she found one set of coordinates, she had to find the next one, then the next one, and so on. It took her about an hour to reach the final set of coordinates, which were at the entrance to the alchemy lab. "Oh, come on!" Nancy complained. "I already knew where the secret alchemy lab was located. Why didn't Merrick send me this coordinate first, instead of wasting all my time with the others?" Grumbling, Nancy entered the alchemy lab, where she came face to face with the culprit. It was Vladena Zloty! Author's note: pretend to be surprised who the culprit is, even though you probably knew it already. Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 25. "My name is Vladena Zloty, not Vladina's lady," Vladena said. "These stupid Americans keep forgetting to include the accents. It is even worse than the way they mispronounce the name Oscar Dvorak." "Talking about your boyfriend, eh?" Nancy asked. "Sorry, but from now on, you'll have to send him love letters from jail." "Nancy," Vladena said, crossing her arms, "I should have known you'd be here." "Ah, but first, I should probably thank you for getting me the keys." "You're welcome," Nancy said politely. "It wasn't easy solving the alchemist's riddles. It took me, 10 whole minutes." "I spent 6 months trying to solve those riddles," Vladena said. "I cannot believe you solved them so quickly. You really are a genius when it comes to solving puzzles." "Or maybe I'm normal smart, and you're just dumb," Nancy said. "When the leader of Lukaji learns how badly you failed, you're going to be fired." "You're good at solving puzzles, but not much else," Vladena said. "I am Lukaji. Now, prepare to die at the hands of my poisonous gas." "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Nancy said, holding up her hands. "What is this, amateur hour? You can't kill me yet. You have to explain all the details of your crimes, then you try to kill me. That's standard villain procedure." "You are too stupid to understand the details of my genius," Vladena said. "I told you directly to your face that I had you brought here to find the 7 keys, and you still didn't suspect a thing. But if you insist, I will give you 3 questions before I kill you." "So, Nancy said, trying to think of a good question. "If you're here, does that mean you're the one who stole Adela's gems?" "Of course," Vladena said. "It was all a pretense, so Adela would bring you to Prague." "But you and Adela are friends," Nancy said. "That's not a very nice thing to do to a friend." "We're not really friends," Vladena said. "I don't have any friends. What's your last question?" "Hey, that wasn't a question," Nancy said. "It was more like commentary on your sad, friendless life. My second question is, why do you want to steal the crown jewels?" "For money," Vladena said. "For money?" Nancy gasped. "You're stealing things for money? I've never heard of such despicable behavior before." "Money is used to buy things, you idiot," Vladena said. "You just wasted your last question." "No, there has to be a different reason," Nancy said. "I know, you're in love with Oscar, and this is an attempt to get his attention." "I'm hoping Oscar will be fired once it's discovered the crown jewels were stolen," Vladena said. "I doubt that will happen. My skills with forgery are far too good to be detected by that simpleton." "Aha, see? You want him to get fired so you can take his job," Nancy said. "That makes more sense. This is all a plan to get revenge on him for taking your dream job." "No, you fool," Vladena said. "The Zloty family has been stealing jewels for hundreds of years. I am merely fulfilling my destiny as the ultimate gem thief. And once I'm done here, I'll move on to stealing London's crown jewels." "That didn't work for Constantine, the world's most evil frog in Muppets Most Wanted. And it won't work for you," Nancy said. "That's it. You die now," Vladena said. She tilted her bottle of poisonous gas at Nancy. Nancy stumbled backwards, coughing. No! Nancy said as she fell against the wall. She choked and coughed as she slumped to the floor. "I'll let the police know where to find your dead body. Eventually," Vladena smirked. She picked up the bag with the 7 keys, then left through a secret exit. Nancy lay prone on the ground, unmoving, for several seconds. "Ha ha! She fell for it!" Nancy said. Nancy jumped up to her feet and did a victory pose. She didn't know whether to credit the victory to her amazing acting skills or to Vladena's stupidity. Who thinks you can poison someone on the other side of a large room just by slightly tilting a bottle towards them? Nancy picked up the bottle and toyed with it. The bottle was mostly filled with liquid. Nancy wasn't sure why there was liquid in a bottle of poison gas, but it didn't matter. She had to stop Vladena. Nancy pulled out her phone and called Adela. "Merrick, your plan worked perfectly. I'm chasing after Vladena now." "Vladena?" Adela asked. "Chasing? What's going on, Nancy?" "I don't have time to explain," Nancy said. "Just pass the message on to Merrick." "Who?" Vladena asked. "No, that's not Vladena talking. She's just talking to Adela. Sorry about that typo. I don't have time to explain," Nancy said. "Just pass the message on to Merrick." "Who?" Adela asked. "He's the guy I was going to call, but I don't have his phone number, so I called you instead," Nancy said. "By the way, the phone reception in these underground tunnels is fantastic. I guess that's what happens when you run a fake internet security business. Anyway, I've got a criminal to catch. Nancy, out!" Chapter 26. After a lot of searching through these new hidden tunnels, Nancy found herself at the vault door. Fortunately for Nancy, Vladena left behind the bag with the 7 keys inside. "Wow, it's almost like she wants me to follow her," Nancy said. She picked up the keys and looked at the door. Now what?" Nancy asked. She was hoping for puzzle instructions. Sadly, all she had to work with was, nothing. "What the heck am I supposed to do here?" Nancy asked. She stared at the door for a few minutes until the answer came to her. She probably had to put the keys in the keyholes. She took the red key and tried putting it in the top keyhole. It didn't fit. She tried the next keyhole, which again didn't fit. It wasn't wide enough. The only keyhole that it fit inside was the bottom one. Nancy quickly figured out which key went into which keyhole that way. Soon enough, all the keys were in place. Nancy resumed staring at the door. "What next?" she said. "Can I get a hint for this part?" Nancy never did figure out the logic behind this unexplained puzzle. Her best guess was that the solution was something like turn the keys in alphabetical order, which would have been more obvious to someone who knew ancient Czech. Either that or Vladena had taken the instructions with her. Nancy had no idea the solution corresponded to an alchemy book that she didn't bother to read inside the cafe. Does the solution have to deal with where I found the keys, maybe? Nancy wondered. No, because I found 3 of the blueprints in the model clock, and it'd be weird if I had to turn 3 keys at the same time. And, now it's been so long I can't remember which key is which. Was I supposed to be taking notes? Nancy stared at the door for another 3 minutes until a solution came to her. "Hello, Nancy," she said, lightly tapping herself on the forehead. "These are clearly based on my first 7 mysteries. I just need to turn them in that order." The solution was sun, candle, night, compass rose, planet Saturn, alchemy beaker, and hourglass. Nancy turned those keys, but the last one was stuck. "Oh, come on," Nancy said, pulling with all her might. "Stupid ancient door! You know you want to open!" Nancy gave one almighty tug. The key snapped in half, and the doors flew open. "Oops, now I only have 6.5 keys," Nancy said. She took a moment to put the keys back in the bag, then used the bag to prop the door open, because no way was she going to solve the key puzzle again. "Wait for me!" a voice called from behind Nancy. It was Elka, who came jogging into the passage. "Elka? What are you doing here?" Nancy asked. "I intercepted the message you left for my grandfather, and I came to help," Elka said. "I am a security expert, after all." "Could have used your help 10 minutes ago," Nancy thought sarcastically. "What's the next step, then?" Elka pointed at a metal door at the end of the otherwise empty hallway. "That's a biometric security door," Elka said. "See the touchpad? You scan your fingerprints and eyeballs there. Only someone who's registered in the system will be able to open it." "But I'm not registered in the system, and neither are you," Nancy said. "How can we open it?" "No need to worry," Elka said. "The biometric system is on a timer. Once the door is opened, it remains unlocked for a full hour." "That's convenient," Nancy said. "Let's go in." But there's also a basic security system which runs on a separate 5-minute timer," Elka said. "We'll have to undo that in order to open the door." "This seems like an unnecessarily complicated security system," Nancy said. "Not at all," Elka said. "It's just like the cyberblock puzzle that I had you do earlier. Complete the puzzle, and the door will unlock." "You're the expert," Nancy said. "You solve the puzzle." "But you're the detective," Elka said. "How did you know I was a detective?" Nancy gasped. "I never told anyone." "I'm your best friend, remember?" Elka said. A little voice in the back of Nancy's head warned her that every other time a new friend unexpectedly showed up at a treasure vault, the friend was secretly a villain in disguise. Nancy ignored this mental warning. Elka was her best friend. There was no way that this was a trick. "Okay, bestie," Nancy said. "I'll solve the puzzle for you." Nancy quickly solved the puzzle by cheating. She picked up the pieces and put them in different spots on the board, making it much easier to reach the end in the required number of moves. "I did it!" Nancy cheered. "That's unfortunate for you," Elka said. "Now I'll be forced to kill you." "Wait, what?" Nancy asked. "Surprise!" Elka said. "I didn't come here to help you. I came to steal the crown jewels." "Dang it!" Nancy said. "Why does this keep happening to me?" Chapter 27. First Radek's the culprit, then he's working with Merrick, then Lukaji is the culprit, then Vladena is the culprit. Now you're the culprit? Nancy asked. "Will you people stop playing musical chairs with the culprit reveal?" "Don't blame them too much," Elka said. "I've been secretly manipulating all of them this whole time." "But why?" Nancy asked. "It's my grandfather's fault that my mother is dead," Elka said. "This is my revenge. You should understand. You did the same thing when your mother died." Nancy scratched her head. How did Elka know about the silent spy case? "No, that's not what happened at all," Nancy said. "I went to Scotland to investigate Mom's death, yeah, but I stopped terrorists from starting a pandemic 10 times worse than a coronavirus. I didn't frame innocent people for jewel theft." "I meant that you didn't listen when your relatives told you to drop the case." "Yes, but it's not like Dad was wrong about me being in danger," Nancy said. "I was kidnapped and trapped in a trash compactor with a blabby secret agent who never returns my phone calls. Samantha quick my butt, more like Samantha slow to respond." "Don't bother trying to waste time until the police arrive," Elka said. "They're not coming. I never called them." "I'm guessing you were responsible for all the phone stuff, since you're the electronics expert," Nancy said. "Exactly," Elka said. "Ever since I started Lukaji, we've been providing free internet as a cover to bug people's phones and computers. We use the information we gather to blackmail people on a large scale. That's how I got that virus on your phone. And you were only pretending to have a crush on Radek, because no one could still like him after being forced to do his terrible puppet puzzle," Nancy said. "I should have known." And you should have known not to cross me, Elka said. My taser ring is powerful enough to knock you unconscious. Or maybe it will kill you. Let's find out. How about no? Nancy said. She reached into her purse and pulled out the bottle of poisonous gas that Vladena had tried to use on her. Nancy threw the bottle at Elka's head. It smashed into tiny pieces, and she was immediately knocked out. That was violent, Nancy said. Just in case there would be more violence, she stole the ring from Elka's unconscious body. Then she entered the vault. Vladena was inside, along with an unconscious man. She was holding a knife, along with some jewelry items. Well, aren't you tenacious, Vladena said. You should surrender. The police will be here any second, Nancy lied. I have a better idea, Vladena said. I'm almost done swapping the jewels on the crown with fakes. Why don't you swap the last 4 jewels for me? You want me to stab the jewels? Nancy asked. If you do not, I will stab Leo with this knife, Vladena said. But I don't know anything about jewels, Nancy said. I'll probably put them in the wrong spot or break them or something. You think this bothers me? Vladena asked. I am a master jeweler. Which is why you should put the jewels on, Nancy said. Seriously, I don't even know the difference between a jewel and a gem. In school, I called them gemules, and everyone laughed at me. Put the jewels on or there will be death, Vladena said. This is so violent. It almost makes me wish I was back making coffee, Nancy thought. Almost. Nancy approached the crown. There were 3 big jewels and 3 spots on the outside where the jewels could go. She shoved the jewels on at random, not realizing that all 4 sides of the crown were supposed to match. You need to rotate them to fit, Vladena ordered. Now that I can do, Nancy said. She grabbed one of the jewels. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Vladena was unimpressed by Nancy's words of wisdom. Where does the last gem go? Nancy asked. In the empty spot, Vladena said. I don't see any empty spot, Nancy said. It's clearly there by the stem, Vladena said. The black spot. That has a black jewel in it, Nancy said. No, it's not a black jewel. Black means the spot is empty, Vladena said. Half of the gems look black, Nancy said. If you're going to give me a color-based puzzle, at least give me one where the colors are clearly visible. Vladena rolled her eyes at Nancy. This proved to be a good thing, because when Vladena's eyes were off of Nancy for a second, Nancy quickly pulled out the taser ring and used it to electrocute Vladena. Yes, this was definitely the violent part of the story, Nancy said. Author's note, here's a random thing I just noticed. An item disappears from the unconscious Leo's hand, his right hand. In this scene, after Nancy says, let him go, something disappears from his hand. I don't know what it is or why that happens. It's just something I noticed when I was, replaying the game in order to write this. Now, in the actual game, it goes on for like 20 minutes after that, but I didn't really want to do all that. So I just finished with an ending letter instead of going through like all the scenes, because we get a scene with Radek and a scene with Merrick and then a scene with Adela and Zane and then another scene with Patricia, and then Radek and Merrick come back, and then Nancy has a scene with either her dad or Ned, and it's like, okay, I just want to be done with the story. So that's why chapter 28 is the ending letter. Dear Dad, to think I almost became friends with a jewel thief. I woke up the unconscious man, who identified himself as Father Leo Sokol. He was still feeling woozy as an after effect of Vladena's knockout gas, so I helped hold on to him as I let him out of the vault. He called the police for me. Did you know the Czech version of 911 is 112? Merrick and Radek arrived just as the police arrested Elka. Poor Merrick was heartbroken, while Radek was confused. She had a crush on me? Why didn't anyone tell me that? He complained. The good news is that it gave him a new idea for a marionette show about a talking banana who has a crush on the sun. Agent Zane arrived the next day, which is good news, because I'm pretty sure Lukaji had collected blackmail material on more than a few police officers. Zane tracked down all the remaining members of Lukaji, including fences, smugglers, and an entire office of computer workers. One of the headlines read, 50 engineers arrested due to American teenager. I made sure to forward it to all my engineer friends in Colorado, but for some reason, they didn't seem happy for me. Merrick was worried that he'd be arrested as Vladena's accomplice. After all, he did forge the 6.5 keys for her. I was the one who found the blueprints. Does that make me an accomplice too? The good news is that Agent Zane agreed not to arrest me or my friends. Adela was so grateful, she took Zane out to a private dinner. I forgot to mention that Adela's stolen jewels were in Vladena's hideout near the alchemy lab. Merrick helped put the jewels back into Adela's necklace. Guess what? When you face the jewels in the correct directions, writing appears on the back of the necklace. It says the necklace belongs to a noble family called the Vitkovskis. That's Patricia's family. The necklace looks hideous on her, but I suppose that's not her fault. As for Oscar, he's still furious at me. I think he might be a little heartbroken because he'll never see his sweetheart Vladena again. I tried telling Oscar about the gems I found inside the artifact, but he refused to listen. While kicking me off the property, he yelled, "As far as I'm concerned, whatever you found in the museum, you can keep! Leave me alone!" So now I'm the owner of 3 valuable old gems. Not a bad reward for solving a mystery. I still never figured out who sent me the anonymous text messages about the 7th key, or why my voice has sounded different ever since I went to Salem. A mystery for another day, I suppose. Love, Nancy. P.S. On the way to mail this letter, I got a text from Agent Zane. He says that Vladena wasn't arrested. She must have found a way to escape from the vault before the police arrived. Zane warned me that Vladena is dangerous and she might want to get revenge on me. Yeah, well, there's a waiting list.